welcome to Haunted Hospitality, Southern Stories Told by Spooky Gingers. I'm Robin.
And I'm Zoe.
And I have a story for you today, but first, Zoe, how's life?
Well, a few weeks ago I took a couple days off and had a nice, relaxing 4-day weekend, and not much happened other than the fact that I got engaged.
Yeah!
And we're recording on the video right now, so woo!
She's showing her ring to the camera.
Yes, I am. But yes, I got engaged. Kari popped the question.
How did it happen?
Well, I won't go into the full story because I think I've told it about 20 million times since then. But basically, the reason we got together is because of the Sonic
The very logical reason we got together.
The reason we got together is because of the Sonic 1 movie, the Sonic movie that came out in 2020. And I went on Tinder, and in my profile, I said I'm just looking for a date to the Sonic movie because it was coming out on Valentine's Day, and I didn't want to, be a loner on Valentine's Day. And so the Sonic 2 movie just came out. Oh, by the way, Kari's, favorite thing ever is Sonic. So
I didn't know that. I just thought it was kind of random.
Oh, no. So Kari saw that on my profile, and he, super liked me. Because, every decor we have in here is either Sonic, Stitch, or Mario themed. We have so much Sonic stuff. We have a poster, a Build-A-Bear, yes. So he's obsessed with Sonic the Hedgehog. And so the second movie just came out, we went to go see it together. I've been saying since I probably way too early in our relationship that it would be adorable if at the premiere of Sonic 2 he proposed, and that's exactly what he did.
Aww.
Yeah, so I'm engaged, and planning a wedding is hard, and apparently planning a wedding in 6 months is super duper fast for this industry.
It is. Congratulations. At least it's not 4 months.
At least it's not 4 months, yes. Kari and I both were an idiot, and we're like, oh, April to October, that's 4 months. Because we were taking the 8 in October and subtracting the 4 from April.
Guys, she counted out the months to me.
May,
said,
June, July, October.
And I was like, you're forgetting August and September.
Which is really funny because I'm a Leo and I was born in August, so you'd think.
You'd think you'd remember your birth month. You're just too distracted and excited.
Yes, because my fiancé and I are planning a wedding.
Congratulations.
Thank you. How's your life? Anything exciting?
I'm watching a new show. I'm watching Our Flag Means Death on HBO.
I have heard of that. I've heard that it's a gay pirate show.
It is. Me and everybody else in the world is watching Our Flag Means Death. Basically, it's not historically accurate by any means. It's basically taking the fact that, yes, these two pirates did exist, and then it is just winging it from there, but it's very fun. And actually it makes me want to do an episode on Blackbeard, since so much of any coastal story we have, there's a little asterisk that we need to put in the episode that says, and they say Blackbeard was here. Or they say Blackbeard haunts this place. So I call dibs on doing an episode on Blackbeard. Probably soon.
I think you called dibs on that 12 episodes in.
Zoe, I can't remember what I say. Anyway, I'm calling dibs.
Okay, you can have him.
Thanks. Do you have a something?
I do have a something. I have a something very not southern, something spooky.
Is it northern?
It's northern, yes. That's why I said very not southern. So
something southern. What would it be? Nothing northern? Is that the equivalent?
No, I think nothing northern would be the same thing as something southern.
Oh.
Because you took it would be something northern or...
Notable northern.
Okay. Well, it's a something spooky, so we didn't have to do that. So according to this one site, which is called obscurevermont.com, this is something that only happens in Vermont. However, I think the person might have had a little bit too much state pride, because I have definitely seen this kind of thing in other states beyond Vermont.
Okay.
What I am telling you about is something called a coffin window. Have you ever heard of this and or seen this?
No, but I can guess what it looks like.
What does it look like in your mind, Robin? I want to prove you wrong.
It's a coffin that has a window cut out at the face.
No, it is a window on a house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm really much more happy about that.
So, you know when houses, sometimes they have like a big, like they have a second floor on one part of the house, but they don't have a second floor on the other part of the house. And so there's like this small gap between the roofs.
A gap?
On the wall. So it would be like a roof, a little bit of a wall, and then another roof, where the one floor part matches the second floor part.
I love to say that I can picture it, but
Okay.
I'm so sorry I can't. I feel like that's a flaw on my part and that you should continue with your story.
Okay, let me real quick just drop this in the chat. Actually, no, I can't drop this in the chat. It's going in your Facebook messages.
All right, I see that there is... Yeah, I see what you're talking about.
Okay, so there's a little bit of wall in between the two roof sections, and on that wall, you'll see that sideways window.
Mm-hmm.
That is the coffin window. So it's not completely sideways. It's like at a 45-degree angle. And it's
Which is a weird angle for a window.
Which is a very weird angle for a window. That's why it's called a coffin window and or a witch's window. So the idea is that if someone were to die upstairs, it would be much easier to get their body or coffin out of that window instead of bringing their coffin all the way down the stairs. Because normally in these houses, stairs are very narrow and cramped and steep. And so what they would do instead, and the window is tilted so that they don't have to like tilt the coffin, and it would be much easier that way.
Do they ever think about just putting the body in the coffin after you bring it downstairs?
Robin, that's not the way things are done.
So wait, this is like a window so that you can gently slide the coffin onto the roof, and then what? Hopefully gently slide it off the roof? I can tell you that ended in disaster at least 50% of the time.
Well, apparently it was a lot easier to do that than it was to carry them down the stairs, because the stairs were narrow and steep. But
So
it also has the name of a witch's window because of a superstition that witches can't go through a crooked window or door. And so that singular window, that singular window is safe from witches. The rest of your house, they can come in. But
so basically from what I'm hearing from you, basically every other window besides that specific instance of window should actually be called a witch's window, because that is the specific instance of one. 45-degree angle is the only one in which a witch, according to this lore, cannot enter.
Yes.
All right.
But those are the mythological reasons, those are the spooky reasons why it's called that. In reality, what it probably was is because it was more practical to have the window at an angle, because that amount of space between the roof and the other roof on the other part of the building, you would either have to get a custom window done, which would be too expensive, have a really small window, which wouldn't let in enough light or air, or you can put a normal window sideways, which would be cheap and allows the normal amount of air and light in. So that was
what we're saying is that it went from death, witches, really it's architecture.
So I would say it probably went the other way around. It went from really it's architecture, witches, coffin,
death.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So that's a coffin window. You're welcome. I saw it in TikTok recently and I was like, oh, that's cool.
That is cool.
I mean, the person wasn't talking about anything about it. They were just talking about something or other, but I saw it in the background.
And then you saw the coffin window?
Yeah, I was like, what the heck is that?
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good little research.
Thanks.
Thanks.
So Robin, do you have a story for us?
I do have a story for us. And unfortunately, you do know what it is. Guys, I am revisiting a previously talked about not full episode previously talked about, but a something southern spooky previously talked about topic that I swore I would return to. Well, guys, this is me returning to it. I think that I could have said that better, but I didn't, so we're going with it.
I like the way you phrased it.
Thank you very, very much. So, we're going to Louisiana. St. Francisville, Louisiana. There is a big house called the Myrtles Plantation. It has a 125-foot-long wraparound veranda. It has a parlor for men, and then it has a parlor for women, or at least that's how it was divided in ye olden times. It has a 300-pound crystal chandelier that you hope and pray won't fall on you. That is my editorial addition. And the entrance has a stained glass French cross. Theoretically, so evil cannot enter the house.
Okay.
But is evil already there? Ooh. Yes, everyone, this is a haunted episode. You're shocked, I know. So, in short, the Myrtles Plantation and its various hauntings can be traced back to Alexander Hamilton. If Alexander Hamilton never existed, neither would any of this. Thanks, Hamilton.
And we would not know the name Lin-Manuel Miranda.
We actually might. He could have gotten
that's
around
the only thing he's known for.
Okay. I mean, he's like almost at his EGOT, but okay. Gotcha. So, Alexander Hamilton is, a guy involved in the early formation of the American government. They're figuring out how things are going. They're like, what should we tax? Because we like money, okay? So Alexander Hamilton over here was like, why don't we tax whiskey?
Okay.
And then, the government was like, sure. And then that went poorly. Oh. So Pennsylvania in particular got pissed. Farmers...
Were they the whiskey capital of the world?
I don't know.
Okay.
But it was not related enough for me to figure out, wait, why specifically Pennsylvania?
Oh.
But farmers and distillers in Pennsylvania hated it, and they decided to have an uprising about it. So there was like literally, I don't know if you would call it a war, maybe you would. It is called the Whiskey Revolution.
Oh, okay.
I think. Involved in the Whiskey Revolution is former Revolutionary War General David Bradford. He was part of it. He fought in it. The Whiskey Rebellion, that's what it was called. He fought in it. The rebellion failed. And then the federal government decided that they wanted him. He was wanted. He was like the guy on the posters.
Gotcha. Okay.
So Whiskey Dave, as he was called.
Man, goals.
Whiskey Dave fled to what at the time was a Spanish colony, and this is the area of St. Francisville, Louisiana. He goes down there for a bit. He talks to a fella of the name, and I'm going to butcher this, Baron de Carondelet. I'm sure I got that right.
Uh-huh.
And this fella sold him a land grant for, I read this, 650 acres. That seems pretty big.
That is, yeah.
Whiskey Dave builds a plantation house there and starts a plantation, and he calls it Laurel Grove.
Okay.
In fleeing the U.S., he also fled his family, though I heard that he put them in a goodish enough spot. Anyway, eventually he got pardoned by John Adams, the second president of the United States, went back a few years later, got his family, and brought him back down. I just wanted to tie that up like a little neat bow.
Okay.
Eventually, they're living in this house. It eventually gets sold to this guy's son-in-law. The son-in-law is named Judge Clark Woodruff. I mean, they didn't name him Judge. He became a judge.
Hey, I have heard of people named Judge, so it wouldn't be too far out there.
Here's an aside. I love the name Jude. I love the name Jude for a boy and a girl. Like, hey, Jude, Jude Law, it's all good. Uh-huh. Anyway, Judge Clark...
Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought there was going to be a but there.
No. Judge Clark Woodruff remodeled the house, lived in it a while. He had a wife. He had 3 kids. More on that later. Around 1834, it is sold to a man named Ruffin Sterling. He did some more construction on it and turned it into, well, the house it looks like today. So yeah, like a 1830s, 1840s somewhat style construction of this house. And it was called Laurel Grove, and he names it Myrtles Plantation. And the reason he names it Myrtles Plantation, I think, is because there were a lot of crepe myrtles around the trees. So there's this whole like thing about the house. Like there's a lot of, obviously, if I'm telling you the story of the house, there is a lot of storytelling, that's not a word.
Mythologizing?
Mythologizing. Is that a word?
I think so.
Okay,
well, I don't think we're using it correctly.
Let's assume it is, because I feel like it is a word. I am using it correctly.
Okay.
There's a lot of that around the house in a lot of different ways. One of them is that they apparently keep saying that like 10 people were murdered at the house. This is kind of spoilers for later in the episode, but really it was just one guy. I mean, I guess supposedly we could not know about some murders, but in terms of, it was one guy.
Okay.
But there was also like a lot of, this was a house that people lived and died, and there was a lot of death. There was a lot of tragedy and heartbreak. The one murder that did happen there is a guy named William Winter. I think at some point he was the owner of the house. I cannot tell you the various years, because at some point in all this reading, I was like, I can't tell my guys from my guys. I can't tell my owners from my owners. So this guy, William Winter, at one point owned the house. He was teaching Sunday school inside the house when a guy rode up on a horse outside and like yelled out his name. He was like, "Get William Winter to come out here." Well, William Winter went out there and the guy just shot him. Like, no preamble, he just shot him. And part of the myth of this shooting, as if that's not big enough, is that William Winter climbed back up the stairs to his house and on the 17th step died in his wife's arms.
Oh.
Well, people have looked back at the historical sources of the time and said, no, they all say he died immediately. So I don't quite get why we're going with the whole he climbed back up the stairs thing, but that is a major part of what people say when they tell his story. In the 1970s, it was bought by a couple whose last name was Myers, and they turned it into a bed and breakfast. And at this point, when it stops being like a single family home, the ghost stories start to get passed around a bit more. And in 1980, a woman named Frances Kermine bought Myrtles with her husband James, and the ghost stories hugely took off under them, and they owned it for 10 years, and she eventually wrote the book called The Myrtles Plantation, The True Story of America's Most Haunted House. As you can probably tell, we are about to switch into the ghost section of this story, ladies and gentlemen, but before I do, I just want to let you know that if you want a more thorough look at the history of this place than I have given you, you should check out an article called The Myrtles Plantation Legends, Lore, and Lies by Troy Taylor on a website called AmericanHauntingsInc.com. We will also link this among our sources on our website. All right.
Man, Legend, Lore, and Lie is such a good title. Like,
it is a good title.
I wish I could, bonk it out of his head, change the name, and then say, "Hey, Robin, name the episode."
I have had that issue where, I find, the perfect name for an episode, and then real quick I research that name just to make sure nobody's used it, and, they've used it. And I'm like, no, it came to my brain.
I should probably start doing that, huh?
Okay, well now we know. So I would be remiss if I didn't just hit you out of the gate with the most well-known story. True or not true?
I'm going by not true because I feel like if it was true, you wouldn't have said that. Yeah.
Okay. Ghost. Anyway, this is the most well-known ghost at the Myrtles Plantation. Her name is Chloe, and Zoe, I'm going to ask you to open up your email. Now, everybody, just so you know, I have sent Zoe an email with several spooky photographs in which she is clearly instructed to look at them one right after the other, but only when I tell her to, and to not jump ahead.
Yes.
Because spoilers.
Yes.
So, Zoe, you have the email up?
I have the email up. I see a black and white house.
Yes, that is the Myrtles Plantation.
Uh-huh.
So this next string of photos, the ones of Chloe and then the ones of another ghost right after that, are from the Myrtles Plantation website. This is what I'm about to be talking about is a photo of Chloe. It was taken in 1992. The proprietress at the time of the Myrtles Plantation was trying to get a fire insurance policy done for the plantation, and she needed to let the insurance company, if you can't tell, I don't know how fire insurance policies work. This is how you know. She needed to get a photo of how far apart these two buildings were. One is the general store and the other one is the butler's pantry. I could not tell you which is which. And so she took a photo for the insurance agency and she sent it to him. And I guess at some point she looked back at that photo and she says no one was there when she took it.
So that person in between the two houses.
She's saying that person you see between the two houses wasn't actually there when she took it. So Zoe, you see clearly where we're talking about a person.
Yes. Can I scroll to the second photo, or are we still on?
We may scroll to the second photo, which is a zoomed in version of the first photo, because in this one you can more clearly see the odd elements of it. Because, like, okay, let's say there were no odd elements to this photo, which we will get to in a second. Let's say she just took a photo, didn't realize there was a person there, looked back later, sees a person, thinks, oh wow, I didn't think anyone was there. If I was told that as a ghost story, I'd be like, okay, she just didn't notice that a person was there. This is a bed and breakfast. There are people.
Yeah, but
however, there are peculiarities. Yes, Zoe, what do you notice right off the bat?
Right off the bat, I noticed that you can, like, see the siding of the house through this person.
Yeah, and that's not how sidings work, and that's not how boddings work.
No, that's not how light works.
That's not how things work. So, okay, this person really is taking up this narrow crevice of space. It is like almost exactly where like the two buildings kind of like interconnect, almost as if one of the buildings could be blocking part of the person. It very much looks like a person, and you can clearly see the sliding go through them. Now I'm gonna like talk a little bit about the person themselves. It is hard to distinguish anything other than I see a head, I see shoulders, I think I see arms, I see siding going through them, but I can see like how it does appear to be a black woman, potentially in older dress than what we would wear today, though that could be like vague of it, and it also could just be me reading into it, knowing that people will say that this is an enslaved woman.
Okay.
They've got people to look at this photo. Myrtles Plantation website says that the filming crew for the National Geographic Explorer, which I think is a magazine, looked at the photo and thought it was a photo of an enslaved girl. Mm-hmm. And they also said on the website that in May 1995, a researcher like enlarged this image so that he could then like take measurements of the body to like, and he measured the head, shoulder to elbow, and then elbow to wrist, and then said that like, yeah, these are like all measurements like that are proportional to each other that you would find in a person.
Okay,
so right now, potential ghost photo. Could be a ghost photo.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So at first, when I was looking at it, I was like, no, 100% this could be a ghost. But like flicking back and forth between the two photos and like looking at the way the shadows are falling on that day, it looks like it could potentially be a shadow of like a tree or a bush that we don't see because it's on the side of the house.
You think?
I think it's a possibility because, you know, humans have that thing where they try to...
Where we look for humans.
Where we look for humans, yeah. So, I don't know.
I kind of like that take. I'm also kind of surprised that that was your take.
Well, I feel like
my take.
The first thing I thought of when I saw this was, oh my gosh, that's a person. But then you said it was like, to you, it looked like a black woman, but I was staring at it and I was like, well, it kind of looked like a man to me.
Okay.
And then I was like, well, that would be like a really small person. Like, I was looking at like where the chairs are and trying to figure out, and it looks like the person would be like really small, like proportionate but small.
Like, I don't think that person is, I mean, we're getting into the weeds of this photo, but like, let's do it. I don't think that person is facing the camera. I think that person, if anything, if it is a person, is like right against the side of the house and looking straight forward so that what we're getting is a slanted view of them. Mm-hmm. But if you're talking about height, Yeah, I do think that is a rather short person. However, there is a step up onto the porch so that the
Okay.
height of the chairs you're seeing are not necessarily the height they would be if put beside that person on the grass.
Gotcha. Okay. I don't
But
know.
I can also like more so in the I don't know. I actually
It's like
I
when
mean,
they
yeah, we look for
increased.
humans anywhere,
Yeah.
but it is kind of interesting to think of like because I'm looking at this and I'm just kind of like not sure if a tree could make that, but at the same time, like it was 1992 and the contrast could be up in the photo and maybe a tree made it and maybe it was a whole other thing that looked vaguely person shaped when turned into a shadow.
Well, on the second photo, they definitely increased the contrast.
They did,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, but
Um,
that's a common tactic. That's not something that, like,
that's not us saying, ooh, you
they
increase
don't.
the contrast.
Yeah, no, people commonly do that to try to point out something.
They do. That's what happens. So, okay, we have a supposed photo. Okay?
Hmm.
It is hard to tell if we have that photo and then we have a story that gets attributed to the photo, or if we have the story and then the photo gets attributed to the story.
Okay.
Either way, these two things are connected. People say that this is a photo of Chloe. There are a few different stories of Chloe. I'm going to try to succinctly tell you, like, the ones that I came across. And
Okay.
they're going to overlap, so I'm going to, like, specify when they're overlapping. So, Chloe was one of Clark Woodruff's slaves, so this would be Whiskey Dave's son-in-law. The story goes that Woodruff would physically abuse her pretty often, and that she dealt with this by kind of like listening into the conversations between Clark Woodruff and his wife to, I guess, get a sense for how she was behaving that they didn't like. So it was a method of like, I think, correcting behavior to what they would want so she then doesn't get abused.
Okay.
This next part of the story says that they caught her listening to them and that he then cut off her ears, and that this is why she wears a green turban to cover it up. She's often seen in a green turban, or
Okay.
told of to be seen in a green turban. Another version of this story says that he was sexually abusing her and that she was listening into conversations that his wife had because she was fearful of what would happen to her if the wife found out about it. And in this version of the story, she got caught listening and he cut off one ear rather than two.
Okay.
In this next part of the story, so she's kind of like, dealing with losing one ear or two ears. And supposedly they're having, like, Clark Woodruff and his wife are having a 9th birthday party for a daughter. And Chloe supposedly puts oleander leaves, oleander is like a type of flower, and the leaves are poisonous.
Mm.
And so she makes the cake, puts the leaves into the cake, and ends up poisoning the birthday girl, a sibling, and the mother. And there's a thought here that perhaps she wasn't doing this like as a kill and revenge sort of thing, but as in she only meant to make them feel sick so she could then nurse them into health and then be like given more respect around the place. But all three of them died. And according to this story, the other enslaved people on the plantation hanged her and then like put rocks over her body to drown her in the river.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a couple things to note there.
Mm-hmm.
The first is that this is very interesting in the Lavinia Fisher myth, which quick recap of that because that was episode 7 and you might not have heard that. There is a common story that is told about Lavinia Fisher versus a true story that is true about Lavinia Fisher, and the common myth is that she's this serial killer who would put oleander leaves in the tea of the people who would come and stay at what was essentially her bread and breakfast. And the truth is that there's absolutely no evidence that she was a serial killer, but I find it very interesting that like in both legends, which I'm just going to go ahead and give you spoilers, this didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
The woman who killed in these stories, who either didn't exist in real life or didn't kill this way in real life, was given like oleander leaves as her weapon of choice.
Okay.
Interesting connection. It'd be interesting to see if more of this comes up in similar type stories. And the other thing, there is one other alternate version of this. In this one, she is not called Chloe, she is called Cleo. And she is actually here at like kind of a different era, kind of like the next generation of people owning the house. This is when it's owned by Ruffin Sterling. And the thought is that Ruffin Sterling's 3-year-old daughter, Kate, was dying of typhoid. And so they called out for a healer, and the idea is that Cleo was not enslaved at this plantation, but enslaved at a neighbor's, and so she was known to be a healer. She came over, was unable to heal Kate, and then they hanged her out of retribution for not being able to save the daughter.
Sorry.
Yeah, you have a question.
Didn't you say I forget which episode, probably, I don't know. You were talking about your Southern literature class, how your teacher talked about plantation romances. And didn't you say, like, that's kind of a trope that the other slaves would kill the misbehaving slaves?
So, it could be. That was not the trope that I discussed.
Okay.
And I actually haven't heard of that one specifically myself for the plantation romances, but I'm actually glad you brought that up, because this did just the idea that like the other slaves were the ones that like did the retribution in 2 out of these 3 versions of the story. It did kind of make me think of what is a trope in those plantation romances, which is that, like, long story short, these stories would end with a slave saving the plantation, being offered his freedom, and then saying, no, I don't want my freedom because y'all treat me so well, and I love being a slave here. And it was a major thing to appease any existing white guilt. Right. Okay, over this situation, and make them think that, like, no, we're giving them a good life instead of we're taking their lives from them and forcing them to do our labor and controlling every bits of their lives. So I think that, like, that idea of maybe, like, enslaved people's loyalty to the families that were enslaving them is really coming into play in these theories about Chloe. And I wasn't quite sure, like, I knew I felt the connection between those two, that and then the trope I just talked about, but I actually wasn't quite sure, like, if it was something that I could explain. So I'm really glad you brought that up, because I think it deserved to be explained there, because it is a connection.
Well, you're welcome. I'm just awesome.
Thanks, Zoe. I heard that, and this was, like, before I'd really, like, gone into figuring out whether Chloe existed or not. And I was already thinking, like, okay, that sounds all fake, because it sounds, like, too theatrical, and I am, by this point, very familiar with the things that come up in stories when supposedly haunted places in the South are telling you the awful things that happened there.
Right.
And it just felt it felt like something somebody would write, or felt like something somebody would say around a campfire decades ago. Okay. So I did some digging, and I went onto a genealogy website. I actually went on a few that had Clark Woodruff and his family, and I fully expected to see that his wife and his children lived long lives and died nowhere near each other, and actually that was not the case. Okay, he and his wife had 3 children. One of those children was named Mary Octavia, and she lived to be about 70, or at least 70, so she's doing good. But the other 2 children both died in 1824 from, I think it was yellow fever. They both died in 1824 from yellow fever, pretty close together, and that Sarah, and that is Clark Woodruff's wife, died in either 1823 or 1824 from yellow fever. So applying these two things together, it really looks like this was this personal family tragedy of, like, 3 out of the 5 people in that family dying within very close times of each other. That was probably talked about a lot, and then, like, it kind of was used, whether knowingly or not, as a premise to put this other story on top of it.
Gotcha.
That's kind of like my thoughts on this. Now, a little bit into Chloe's existence or not existence. People, not me, but people have looked at lists of the enslaved people at the Myrtles Plantation at this time, and there's a list of every single one of them, and there's no Chloe or Cleo or anything. So, just right off the bat from there, Nah, probably
Yeah.
not real. There is an article I found on a place called the Skeptical Inquirer, and like anytime you see skeptical up there, it's like we are disproving ghosts. Okay. So it's an article I found in the Skeptical Inquirer. It is by a man named Joe Nickel, and it was originally from a publication called Skeptical Briefs, volume 20.3. And the article is called Scientific Investigation versus Ghost Hunters. And it is him debunking ghost hunters. And in this, he called the Chloe story, quote, not folklore, but fake lore, end quote. And I like it. And this is when, rather than folklore, which is a story that is brought about by and passed on by word of mouth and is very much a naturally occurring organic story and is like really good at building like community and culture and passing that on to future generations. Rather than folklore, fake lore is it's coming up so often, and it's actually so interesting to see because I think I've come across fake lore in so many different researchers, and it's hard to tell the difference because I want to tell you folklore, but I don't necessarily want to tell you fake lore. Mm-hmm. Or if I do tell you fake lore, I want to be like,
it's also fake, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is fake. Fake lore is when instead of being this like organically occurring thing, it is when people kind of come up with a story and then say that it's been told a lot. That's how I'm reading fake lore to be, like saying like, and some people say they see a woman in white going along the road at night. You can just come up with that, put that in any town and say, and they've been saying, and people will start to be like, oh, well, they've been saying this. And yeah. It could be incorporated kind of like folklore.
Right.
But it was actually just you kind of coming up with that and then putting that onto a space.
Right. It's like you're trying to write a news article and it's not juicy enough, so you assign a general they, and nobody stops to think, well, who's they?
Yes, nobody stops to think who is they. Now, one interesting thing about Chloe, you know, I'm not saying like her story is true. I'm not saying anything of that. She is known to like be wearing this green turban, like I said earlier, and people who lived in the house, like in the decades before the Chloe story got big, before like anybody talked about Chloe, I think, did pass among themselves like the fact that they would see a woman in a green bonnet. And so it could be that there is like just a continuation of this. If we're talking ghosts here, it could be mm-hmm. the continuation of this ghost and then we're putting more stories to her, or it could be something else entirely, of course.
Right.
One other thing I wanted to mention, because this goes back to the original photo, is Joe Nickel in this debunking ghost hunters. He debunks ghost hunters, but he also mentions that the ghost bunters. Sorry. He also mentions that the ghost hunters themselves debunked a photo at the Myrtles Plantation, and he didn't specify which, but I have to assume that this is the Chloe photo.
Okay.
Maybe I don't have to. I really think that's what he's talking about, because if you are talking about a photo of the Myrtles Plantation and you don't specify which one, I feel like you are talking about the Chloe photo.
Gotcha.
Okay. And he said that the ghost hunters debunked this photo by saying that like it was likely tampered with or could have been tampered with. There's not much more info there, but like just have that in your mind that like perhaps I'm not saying altered. It was, but like I don't know. It felt weird to me to like not include that, so I'm definitely including that.
Okay.
Zoe, please open your email again.
Okay. Go on to the third photo.
Going to the third photo.
Oh, yes. You have shown me this one.
I have shown you this one, but we were talking about it anew. Look at the photo and guess where the figure I'm talking about is.
It's in the curtains, right?
Hold up, let me open the photo. It's like on a different page of my notes. Yeah, it's in the curtains. So I'm just gonna have you go ahead and scroll down because there's like, and these are all like from their website. There are like 3 photos in quick succession. One is like normal zoomed out. The next one is zoomed kind of in. And the third one is like mega zoomed in.
Yeah.
So, okay, the third one, mega zoomed in. You see the girl. I'm just gonna like briefly describe what I see when I look at her. Mm-hmm. Vaguely see-through, kind of little girl who looks like she's giving major Mean Girl vibes is just glaring at out this window at like the two people in the foreground of the photo who are smiling and not realizing that potentially a ghost child is glaring at them. She is in a dress. Now the website describes this as like antebellum clothes, but I'm looking at this and I'm thinking like, could be, but you could also tell me this is from the 1940s and I would believe you, because I don't quite know how children dressed in the olden times.
Yeah.
She looks... Okay, Zoe, I'm gonna tell you my first instinct, and then you tell me yours. Fun game. My first instinct is, it looks so clear and real that I'm suspicious.
So, I look at the first photo, and before I went on to the second photo, I was like, okay, there's like a circle there that I could see being a face, but honestly, it just looks like reflections and lights and the curtains behind and trying to find a pattern, that whole thing. So, like, looking at just the first photo before you go to the second photo, 100% I'm like, no, it's just a pattern, right? Then you go to the second photo, and I'm like, what photo of a little girl did they Photoshop into here? And then you go to the third one, and I'm like, I'm sorry, there is no reason all the other lines and like pixels on this are like all like grainy and dirty. I don't know the word, baked, I don't know, but the lines in her dresses, or the lines in her dress, are crisp and clean.
They are pretty crisp and clean. I mean, okay, she is pixelated. She is pixelated. The rest of the photo is pixelated, because I looked for that too, Zoe. Okay, you're doing a... she might be a little bit pixelated. Yeah. I can very clearly see the lines in her dress. And, you know, I actually looked... I was trying to, like, get a glimpse at the other part of the curtain, but it's blocked by this weird
fern
plant hair thing, just to see if the lines continued or if that was on her dress. And then I was thinking, no, that's too much lined up with, like, where her hem would be, or, like, where, like, the little sash at her waist would be.
And there's a tiny gap in the curtains where the lines continue.
Oh, good eye, Zoe. Good eye. It
looks doctor to me. I mean, I'm not like a photo professional. And obviously they did some filters in something to make it a little bit more crisp.
And they made it brighter too, because it's definitely dark in the first ones.
Yeah.
But it's like much lighter. And I mean, again, we're not here being like, they upped the brightness. We hate that.
Yeah. No, I think they took, like, a little girl and Photoshopped it in.
A mean little girl.
So, you're saying she's mean girling, but honestly, have you seen a little kid when you say cheese? When you say when you say cheese, I'm about to take your photo. Little kids do.
Let it be known that Zoe is gritting her teeth with her hands on her hips.
Yes. But, like, they don't pull a normal smile.
No, okay, and that's not a normal smile. She looks mean. Now, okay, here's where we get into some other things. This photo was apparently sent to the Society of Psychical Research in England, and that is the oldest paranormal research group ever, apparently. And according to the website, the Myrtles Plantation website, the Society of Psychical Research in England found this to... Basically, they said this doesn't seem fake to us. Okay? That's one thing. And they, on the Myrtles Plantation website, which, guys, I swear I have other sources. It's just that, like, I wanted to specify sometimes where I'm getting this stuff they gave me in particular. They have a series of quotes from people who they've sent the photo to, and I'm just gonna read one to you because this is me in this podcast while I'm, like, when I'm, like, researching some, like, haunted things, and I'm like, I don't know, it seems fake, but then I come across something that, like, really is freaky. This is me. Okay, this is a quote that somebody, like, sent them back in an email or something regarding this photo. They said, "We'll put this in the difficult to explain category, at least for now, as I try to gain more information." That's me, like, coming across a freaky thing. I'm like, okay, I'll put this in the difficult to explain, and then we'll see. But this is, like, my motto going forward. Now we're going back. We're leaving the girls.
Okay.
Or the girl in the photo. We will have another photo soon, but don't go yet. Don't look, Zoe. Don't look.
I'm hitting next.
Look.
I'm hitting next.
Oh my god. Okay. So, supposedly, we're going back to William Winter, and he was the guy who went outside of his house and got shot. The one actual documented murder that happened on the plantation, rather than the 10 they say happened. And remember, he didn't walk any steps.
Right.
People say that they hear him walk to the 17th step, which is, according to legend, where he died. But we know from history that that's not what happened. So I have a couple questions.
I think I have an explanation. The ghost heard the story of him climbing to the 17th step so many times. He's like, you know what? I should climb to the 17th step.
Oh, so you think he's playing into this?
Yes.
Okay, you're saying he likes the attention.
Yeah. He's a Leo.
Okay. That would actually answer my questions.
Why don't you go ahead and ask them anyways?
So one thing is, if he didn't die on the 17th step, who are they hearing? Well, it could be a attention-seeking William Winter. The other question that I have, and this is simply like the mechanics of realizing you're being haunted and then actively paying attention to it. This is a bed and breakfast. I cannot emphasize how much people are at places where people are supposed to stay. So some of these places are like, and nobody was supposed to be there. But this is a bed and breakfast. Maybe Johnny was going out for a smoke break. Don't know. But
unless this like bed and breakfast has like curfew where you can't leave your room after 10 p.m.
Guys, don't tell me what to do. Okay, so I'm just thinking, like, you are, let's say, you are in the parlor. The gender-specific parlor, as I said. You are in the gender-specific parlor, and you are hearing people walking on the stairs. At what point do you think that's a ghost? And at what point, and this is the bigger question, do you start counting? And you're like, they got to the 17th step and stopped. Because at the point that, like, you realize that somebody's walking on the stairs, you're not like, 1, 2. Okay, so I'm just putting that out there. I'm putting that out there. It is out there.
Okay, it's out there.
It's out there now. I don't have to do anything more about it. There was a movie called The Long Hot Summer that was filmed there, and no, I have never seen or heard of it.
It sounds exciting.
It sounds like a long hot summer. And it was filmed at the plantation in the house, and the cast and crew said that, like, when we left the room, the furniture looked like this. And then when we returned to the room, the furniture was in different places. And apparently this happened a lot. Fun little tidbit for you. Zoe, open your email.
Oh yes. I'm staring at the little girl. Can I hit next?
Okay, scroll down.
That is a handprint on a mirror.
You make me laugh. Okay, can I tell you why I'm laughing so hard?
Why are you laughing so hard?
I'm looking at my notes right now. Okay, we have the photo of the mirror. All right.
Yes.
My next bullet is, ask Zoe what the mark on the mirror looks like. And the reason I have that is because I'm like, that doesn't look like a handprint to me, but everybody's saying it's a handprint. So I want to disprove this with Zoe. And you're like, that's a handprint on a mirror.
Like, it's like this.
Let it be known that Zoe is holding her hand upside down at about a 45-degree angle. It looks awkward.
Yeah.
But Zoe, where do the those are some short fingers. That is a wide palm. I have never seen a hand look like that in my life.
So, it looks like...
Are the fingers curled? Are there 10 of them?
So, to me, it looks like somebody went like this, very lightly hit with their fingers, and then slipped a little. So it's like... Yeah. It looks like a handprint.
And hold my hand upside down at a 45-degree angle, lean on a mirror, and then slip.
Well, depending on how high this is, it could be like you literally just fell and you're catching yourself on the wall.
Really provide a lot of context.
Yeah.
So, this is an antique mirror inside the house. And people say that they see the children who Chloe poisoned in the mirror.
Fun.
FYI, and remember, she didn't poison any kids, and also she didn't exist, so I don't know who they're seeing.
Well, there's still kids who died on the property.
there are still kids who die on the property. So if they are seeing things, it could be those kids.
Yeah.
And as you've said, there is a handprint that I am suspicious of. And supposedly, it is there no matter what. So, like, you know, that mirror, I think is original, but maybe it's been replaced. But basically, anytime, like, you put that kind of sheen on a mirror, like, so, like, you're making it reflective again, because it can dull out. So, like, every time they do that, the handprint supposedly shows up again. The supposed handprint supposedly shows up again.
I mean, it does look like a very dirty mirror. Like, they kind of need to give it a wash.
It could use some more. They could use it some. They could
some Windex. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so there's like more ghosts. So there's a gazebo where people have supposedly seen a ghost of a Native American woman.
Okay.
Apparently, people hear a piano playing, and then once they enter the room, the piano stops.
Ooh. And
I put in parentheses, like, that nobody's on the bench. Like, it's not just a person who stopped playing.
Okay, yeah.
A live person. And you can hear children playing who are also not there. Now, I talked a little bit ago about Frances Kermeen. She bought the place in 1980. She's the person who literally wrote the book on how haunted the Myrtles Plantation is. She has a bit of a ghost story of her own. She was interviewed by a podcast from the website The Mysterious Universe, and she told them that, okay, so it's her second night at the hotel. She and her husband James have at this point decided to buy it, and they are in the process of doing so, and she is there kind of in the transition while he is back, kind of like, I don't know, packing up, getting things ready from where they were before. The current owner, soon to be ex-owner of the establishment, is also sleeping in the house. So she told Mysterious Universe that she was sleeping with the light off, heard running up the stairs, didn't think anything of it, tried to go back to sleep. Then she saw that the light was on. So she's like, okay, well, whatever. She turned it off, heard the steps again, and then heard someone, like, shaking the doorknob to a room, like they were trying to open it. When the shaking stopped, she ran downstairs and tried to wake up the soon-to-be former owner, but he didn't answer his door, so she did what anyone would do, and she drank some brandy. And
not whiskey?
Not whiskey, apparently. No. Whiskey Dave strikes again. She drank some brandy, went to sleep on a couch. So at this point, like, if you're on the couch, I'm assuming you're kind of like out in the open, which is like freaky if somebody was trying to get in to your room.
Right.
I don't know what I would do in that situation. I would probably go to like a Motel 8 or something. She went to sleep on the couch, and then she woke up a little bit later and she felt she was being watched. So she opens her eyes and she said she saw a see-through woman wearing a green turban.
Okay.
So this kind of goes with the green turban ghost story. She put her hand to touch her, and then the woman disappeared. So that is her story.
Okay.
In addition to that, in addition to, like, literally everything I've told you thus far, people will smell perfume.
Okay.
I guess belonging to a person that isn't there, and hear babies crying and hear parties, all of which I assume are not actually there.
I mean...
or only there in their ghostly capacity. Me saying they're not actually there means, like, nothing alive is making that happen.
Like, there's not a physical, tangible baby in the hallway crying.
Like, yeah, I heard a baby crying today, but that's because there was actually a baby.
Yeah. I saw a door close. Somebody else closed it, but
it did close. Spooky.
I know.
Apparently they have a lady in white, because of course they do.
You don't have a haunted plantation without a lady in white.
You don't have a haunted plantation without a lady in white. And she will look out the upstairs window, because of course she will.
Yes.
What else is she supposed to do? She's a lady in white.
What else is a woman supposed to do in her death?
Then look out the upstairs window. I mean, I am looking out an upstairs window right now.
Me too. Oh, there's a man there.
That's gonna come up actually in a bit. So, Ghost Adventures went there.
Okay.
So I have some things to say about that.
About our favorite person?
So they would not let me watch the full episode, which is probably for the best.
Okay.
But I did watch clips.
Okay.
And so it is just important for me to let you know that they had a Guess That EVP clip.
Uh-huh.
And so what they do is they show you Zach Baggins on the stair, and he's talking to a ghost, as he does. And then they give you sound, and I can't remember what it sounded like, but it was like, yeah, okay?
And that means get out, Zach.
Get out, Zach. And then it's like it gives you no text with that, because, you know, in the traditional show, they give you text. And actually, I saw this clip first with the text. So they took the text away, and then they were like, what did it say? And then it gives you multiple choice answers, as if there's like a clear-cut right answer. So you guess, and then it shows you the clear-cut right answer. And they said that the ghost was saying behind you, and then that it said, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I can tell you, even while I was like watching it, when it did show you like the text as the speaking was happening, which, like, by the way, just don't do because it's leading people, I was thinking, like, that did not say behind you. And yeah, just FYI. Ghost Adventures interviewed a woman who works there named Hester, and she has an interesting ghost story. She said that she saw the ghost of a child once because she saw a couple coming in, and behind them, out of the car, was coming a little girl, and the man came up to her first, so she was like greeting them on the front porch or something, and she said, "Oh, you have a beautiful daughter," and he was like, "We don't have kids." And that classic, "We don't have kids." And
I'm sorry. She walked up to a random person and said, "You have a beautiful daughter?"
No, okay, here's what happened. She works at the hotel. She was on the porch greeting like the bed and breakfast guests as they were coming in, because, you know, like at bed and breakfast you're kind of like more friendly than at a hotel where you're like, don't talk to me. And they were coming in like to her, so she was greeting him, and she said, "Oh, you have a beautiful daughter." I didn't read it as like a weird thing to do.
Okay.
She seemed like a very warm, nice person. And so he gave her the whole "we don't have kids" thing. And so then she's, you know, having like an existential crisis on the porch. And she's like thinking, okay, did my brain come up with this or something? So she's like gonna go inside the house. She's about to. She's thinking, am I crazy? And then she hears something say, like in a little girl's voice, "Hello there." I meant to do a little girl's voice and I just didn't. Anyway.
Hello there.
Oh, God. And she thought to herself, did I just hear that? And then the girl said, "Hello there."
Oh.
Again. Now, the next thing, they talked to a person who, I think this guy works at the bed and breakfast, I think. Yeah, he's a tour guide. This tour guide is talking to, you know, the folks at Ghost Adventures. And he said that he was on a bed in one of the rooms, and then the bed started shaking. And he thought it was an earthquake, but then he looked up and there's like a chandelier, and he saw that the chandelier was like completely still while the bed was shaking. Okay? And then he pointed out gouge marks in the floor that are supposedly from the bed shaking. So Zoe, I would like you to, for the final time, open up your
email.
Thank you.
I mean, that's definitely some scratch marks on the floor.
I took a screenshot from the Ghost Adventures clip. Yeah, it's definitely scratch marks under the floor, under the bedpost. Zoe, those look fresh to me. Those look pretty fresh to me.
I don't know the freshness of floor scratches. However, if the bed was scratching that much surface area, I wouldn't describe it as shaking.
Be like the bed was like
throwing me around. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And, you know, they might not be fresh. The reason I say fresh is just they look like a really light color that hasn't faded at all.
Wouldn't it be lighter?
I don't know, Zoe. I haven't been on a bed that maniacally threw me around the room. So maybe I'm just reading into this, but I'm just Anyway, that was my first thought when looking at those. They look big and they look intense and they look to be made around the same time. That's just my thoughts.
Okay.
Now I have I have 3 more things for you. I have 2 stories read aloud from TripAdvisor, and I have a question.
Okay.
All right? Stories come first. This is a TripAdvisor review for Myrtles Plantation from Marcy W. Ahem. This is edited for length.
Okay.
It was a very warm and sultry night, and we walked around the grounds and took some pictures and sat on the porch for a bit before going to our room for the evening. The night had an eerie feeling, and we did not get much sleep from anticipation of something happening. We did manage to doze off, and in the early morning hours, I was awakened to someone sitting at the edge of my bed on my foot. When I finally got the courage to look at the end of the bed, there was nothing I could see, but I had the distinct feeling of someone sitting on my foot. This lasted for a few minutes, and then I could move my foot again, and whomever or whatever had left. Earlier in the night, we had met the couple that was staying in the room just below us, and they had several pieces of camera equipment that they were setting up in their room to hopefully catch a ghost on tape. The woman had told me that she was very scared to stay and was afraid she would have an experience. Apparently, sometime in the night, something must have happened, because they packed up and bugged out in the middle of the night. The next morning at breakfast, we shared our experiences of the evening, and the staff all very politely smiled as if they knew we would have some type of experience at the Myrtles. They did tell us it was not at all uncommon for guests to pack up and leave in the middle of the night. We took many pictures of the grounds and the house, and it was not until we returned home from our trip that we discovered something on one of our pictures. It appears to be a large orb in the same place where that famous picture of Chloe was taken, standing between the main house and the kitchen. Cool.
Okay. Yeah.
I like the bit about somebody sitting on the foot.
Mm-hmm.
You don't normally hear about ghosts sitting on the foot.
No, you just like kind of sense them sitting near you.
Like it's like always like a tug of the blanket.
I have heard of like sitting down on the bed while you're in the bed, but it's usually like you can just feel the mattress shift.
Yeah, but this is on your something is on your foot.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yes.
This next one, another TripAdvisor review, and this is from a person to me.
A person to me.
I don't know how to pronounce that.
Okay.
They said, I didn't see anything, but we captured some orbs. But one thing left us with questions. As we drove up the driveway to the plantation, the top right window curtain was drawn back, as though someone was looking out. It was dark, no light on, but a faint outline of someone. We stopped the truck and were looking up, making jokes when it suddenly dropped. Then we continued to drive, and I peeked back up at the window to take a second look. The curtain was slightly pulled back, as though someone was still peeking back. Still, we could not see a person, and suddenly it dropped. Was it a ghost? The lady in white dress that they were talking about? We don't know, but it was creepy. Next time we are definitely spending the night. So I have one thing to say to this and one thing only.
Mm-hmm.
That was not a ghost. That was 100% a person wondering why the hell a truck stopped in the middle of the road to get out and look at them and make jokes about the fact that they were looking out their window.
I agree completely.
Okay. I love these, like, I think my favorite thing is finding these, like, little stories that are, like, definitely not ghost stories, but either someone being weird to you or you being absolutely weird to somebody, and somebody thinking this has to be a ghost situation.
Yeah. I mean, like, just the other night, I heard my neighbors yelling at each other, so I was peeking out the window, and if I saw them look up, I would hide, you know? So,
You'd be the lady in white, Zoe.
I mean,
You'd be the lady in white.
I'm so pale I reflect light, so...
So, Zoe, I am proposing a bit of a new addition to this podcast.
Okay.
I would like it if we could end haunted episodes with the question, answered separately from each of us.
Uh-huh.
On a scale from 1 to 10, how haunted is this place?
Huh, okay.
So, Zoe,
Uh-huh.
on a scale from 1 to 10, how haunted is this place?
I would say, based off of it being a southern plantation that has ghost stories, that
does.
automatically puts it at least, like, you cannot go below a 4, in my mind.
Okay.
There has been one person murdered, and there's photos people claiming creepy things happening.
Yeah.
I would put it at a solid 6, but I would need more evidence. Like, all the stories that you told me just now, I feel like none of those are good enough evidence.
Yeah.
But I do believe just the fact that those stories exist hints that people are feeling something there, and they're trying to come up with whatever they can to explain it.
Okay. I like that you said that you wouldn't go below a 4, because I don't. I put it at a 4.
Okay.
And it's mostly because, like, there is a lot of sensationalizing of these stories, and personally for me, I do not find... I find a lot of humor in the sensationalizing, but I don't find, like, my own personal intrigue piqued. And this is not a question of how interested am I in this. How this? In a lot of the places that we talked about, I am scared at some point in my research.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't really scared in my research of this one.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's it from me.
Well, thank you very much, Robin. And I love the slideshow thing. We'll have to do that more often. That was fun.
Well, I was originally making this forgetting that we were, recording virtually. And then I thought, shoot, how do I make this accessible? Do I just describe these images? And I was like, no, that's boring. So anyway, I sent you a slideshow.
It worked. I liked it.
Cool. Guys, thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked it, please subscribe, rate, review, tell a friendo. Subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/hauntedhospitality. We have a $3 tier that gets you a new episode every month.
Yes, and it comes out on the 13th because we're spooky. And the one coming out in, May? Next month is May? Yes. Is the one where you cover Lizzie Borden. So that one's an exciting one.
Okay, cool. Thanks for reminding me that's coming up.
You're welcome. If you would like to see Robin's sources, you can go to hauntedhospitality.wordpress.com. And if you'd like to submit your own spooky story, just a reminder, it doesn't have to be in the South. You can write to us at hauntedhospitalitypodcast@gmail.com.
Yes, and we are also on the interwebs. You can find us on Twitter at Haunted Host. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Haunted Hospitality. We hope to see you there.
Stay spooky. I think we did it.
Yay!